we're coming to the midpoint of the Split 3 for the Drone Champions League of 24. I'm Matt Andrews, welcome to the racing. We're the DCL, these are our 7 professional drone racing teams, and we have another race day of action building towards our Split 3 final. Today's matches are going to start off with SDT, that's the Spain drone team. They've got Danube back on the roster with Red Sheep, Silvio and Sally1, who's been brilliant since he moved to the team. They're up against the former world champions of Raiden Racing. They haven't changed their lineup. It's IQ0, Valprim, Vicen Mayan and Bar2. The second matchup of today will feature our wildcard pilots who are also unchanged. That's Flochelli, West FPV, Chugakva and Bambi. They're looking to show what they can do. They're up against the legendary American team of Quad Force 1. QT, FPV, Propsicle, Hyper and Shane is back on the roster too. So those 2 matchups to look forward to. Also today the China Dragons were meant to take on Mach 1, but Mach 1 are unable to compete through injury. So we've got the other 2 matchups, as you can see. They're particularly close at the top, and these matchups will come to you with 3 races each. 2 pilots from one team against 2 from the other, then the other 2 pilots on each team will battle, and then the big heat where all 8 will race, and the winner of any of those 3 races gets 4 heat points, then 3 for second, 2 for third, 1 for fourth, and after the 3 races are done, we tally up the points and the team with the most gets 3 points for the season. 1 if it's a draw. Nobody wants to walk away with 0. Let's go racing! Spain drone team and Raiden Racing, no hanging around. Sally1 and Red Sheep, Vicen and Bar2 to the skies of Saudi Arabia. This is the corkscrew, the first thing that challenges everybody. And after the block trade obstacles are done, we take our first climb up and down around the rocks. Sally1 in second, behind Vicen Mayan of Raiden. Now going into this quadruple corkscrew, and Sally1 came out of the obstacle before it a bit untidily and is absolutely off the pace here. That's a real shot from such an extremely experienced pilot. He is now 6 or 7 seconds behind. Instead, the 9-year-old Red Sheep is the one in the challenge, and he's hit the middle of the dive rings. So that sent him a little bit backwards. We've got Bar2 FPV out in front for Raiden, and Vicen Mayan about 6/10 of a second behind him. Not often we've seen Bar2 in the front. He doesn't need to worry about the pilot challenging him in second. It would be nice for Bar2 to get his win. I think that might even be his first win in the DCL if he gets it. But Vicen Mayan doesn't let anybody stay in front of him for long. There he is, blisteringly quick through the corkscrew and into the first part of the waffle, then up and out of the second. I know it's really complicated. I'll try and talk you through as we go. Now we weave through the rings on about the middle of the second lap, and here's that dive, which is being nicely flown by Bar2. Some pilots go left, then right, then left, then right. That is definitely a slower way to do it. Bar2 there, showing you how quickly you can do it if you just spiral all the way down. He and Vicen are on to the third lap. Red Sheep is getting into the action now. He's so good, this young 9-year-old pilot. Can he move up into second place? Vicen is probably too far ahead, but Bar2, is he able to be caught? Well, he's doing well in the corkscrew here and out of the A2RL gates. Now you weave your way through this on an upward spiral on the first half, down and then up again. Vicen is going very up to the top here. This is Elephant Rock, this legendary, famous natural formation in Alula in Saudi Arabia. Now just say, Bar2 went right in the middle of that dive. That was an interesting choice, but it worked for him. Sally1's not far away from him in second though. Red Sheep has lost a bit of time, made a mistake and gone to the back. Bar2 hangs on. His teammate Vicen finished over 3 seconds ahead of him, whereas Sally1 was just 4/10 behind. Ahead of him, it's 4 points for Vicen. Now let's look at some of those bumps again, starting with Sally1. He actually overshoots this first turn, bounces off of that, and that's why he's all messed up for his line into this corkscrew. And of course, flying it a bit too tightly in order to catch up. On the ring descent, Mayan hit the second one, Red Sheep hits the third. Mayan went through though, whereas Red Sheep had to go back up for it. Here's some nice lines around the block trade section from the Raiden pilots. A 1-2, 7 points to 3 lead out of the first race. But here comes Silvio and Danube from SDT to try and claw some points back, although Valprim and IQ0, they're not easy to stop either. There are some legends of these 2 teams racing today. Valprim, the first one to make the climb. Silvio, 4,000ths of a second behind him, alongside him, trying to push past him through every one of these tight turns, and that's how you do it. Valprim isn't going to let very much go, and Silvio is capable of battling in a waffle and any of these other tight technical obstacles, so it's going very strongly for both of them in the front. IQ0 had Danube for close company in third and fourth, but Danube just lost a little bit of time, just making a bit of a correction. Now into the last of the split S's, and Valprim just nearly crashed in the Foxeer tunnels. The Silvio's got past him. Now we're on to lap number 2. Valprim's turned the wrong way in the middle of this corkscrew. Oh, he's recovered really quickly, but he's lost 1.2 seconds between him and the leader from SDT. Valprim back on the chase. IQ0 in second. Valprim catching him. IQ0 caught on the top of the corkscrew. Oh, he's gone all the way to the back. That's absolutely stopped him in his tracks. And now Valprim has got a lot to think about as Danube is all around him. We'll just see him over the top of him briefly there. The green trail of Silvio's in front and Valprim is alongside Danube. The SDT pilots are really showing aggression and speed here. Now Danube just slightly hesitant out of the bottom of the dive rings. Silvio's all on his own at the front, starting to stretch. Silvio on to lap number 3. Valprim into the block trade corkscrew and now heading up. He didn't make any mistakes this time. Oh, but he's turned too soon on the climb. We saw somebody do that last week. Just heading for the ring, turning too early to concentrate on the dive down. It's put him down into third place. Danube, though, finds that Valprim is not hanging around and has got second back already. Look how tight that flying is. Danube and Valprim scrapping over second and third. It's looking a little untidy for Valprim up there. Danube ready to take it from him. Silvio's through one of the last split S's, now through the Foxeer tunnel that Valprim bumped through on lap number 1. Silvio to the finish! And then it is Valprim hanging on by only a 1/10 of a second ahead of Danube. That's the first time that Valprim has been beaten by anyone other than his own teammate so far in Split 3. Silvio, so far, none of the other teams have beaten him. There's the weaving around the waffle. Very, very complicated, but the exit later on in the lap, that's where Valprim just lost the time to Silvio in the middle of that Foxeer tunnel. Chased him onto lap number 2. That's where he got caught out on the corkscrew, and this is just too eager to turn. Valprim, though, amazing that he hung on to second despite all of those mistakes. Can he do better still in the big heat? His team, Raiden Racing, they're just 2 points ahead of SDT. When these teams have raced in the previous splits earlier this year, it's been 16 points to 14, both times for Raiden Racing. Can SDT finally beat them in the regular season? Everybody within a second, really tight flying. 6 of the pilots within about half a second. Silvio's the first one to bump, and for SDT, that is a bad sign. Pilot who I was just saying hasn't been beaten from any member of any other team. He's got 4 pilots from Raiden out of 4 all in front of him. Valprim's the one who's furthest away. He's in the lead. Danube in the mix between Valprim and Vicen Mayan. Here's Danube's view onto lap number 2. Trying to catch Valprim, trying to stay ahead of Vicen. IQ0 is in the last of the scoring positions at the moment with the 1 point for 4th place within reach. Danube trying to stay ahead of Vicen, trying to get ahead of Valprim. Valprim's going to be very hard to catch, as we've seen, but he's definitely not flawless around this track in Alula. Now here's the climb up. Don't pull too soon on the dive down, but you've got to be out of that bottom ring very tidily, and Danube has done a better job there than he did in the last run. So he's just fractionally ahead of Vicen, trying to keep that second and doing a good job of it. Lap number 3, the final lap, begins through the block trade corkscrew, then this split S, and then a turn and the climb. And Danube on the pursuit of Valprim has turned too soon. He's made the same mistake we saw Valprim do in the last run. Oh no, Danube! He's still leading for SDT out of their pilots, but they are in 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th. Alright, it's Vicen Mayan and Valprim in an almost unstoppable 1-2 position now, with only half the lap to go, if that, down through the Elephant Rock dive. And Danube has hit the final ring of it, so his teammates Saliwan and Silvio have got past him. Our Danube's rhythm has gone. Valprim, then Vicen Mayan. Only 17 hundredths of a second between those two, and then all of SDT come in behind those, but ahead of IQ0 and Batu. So in the last heat, Valprim's record of not having been beaten by a member of another team was broken by Silvio, and he's gone and repaid the favour. Valprim's now broken that record for Silvio too, and got 4 more points for Raiden on a really thrilling race. Now when you crash in an obstacle like the waffle, such as Silvio has done here, credit for him for knowing which way it is to fly, but nevertheless making a second mistake which messed things up a little bit for him. Valprim at this point in the lead, and Danube very solidly in second. That's where he actually stretched away from Vicen a little bit. Was gaining on Valprim until that mistake let the two Raiden pilots get away. There's their 1-2. Nicely flown, and with that, Raiden are the winners of our first matchup today. And remember, in Split 1 and Split 2 it was 16 points to 14, while here in Split 3 they've done better with a victory 18 points to 12. Abu Dhabi is famous for some legendary races, and after our incredible races last time we flew at the Yas Marina Formula 1 circuit, we are excited to announce we're back with real-life racing again! After the virtual season of DCL the Game, 6 teams will race for real for the title, so join us for the Split 3 finals from Abu Dhabi on Thursday the 12th of December. Real-life racing is back! Time for the second matchup of Match Day 4. It's the wildcard team against Quad Force 1. Flo Celli and Bambi to show what they can do against Shane and QT FPV. Away we go. Bambi hits the first gate in a straight line out of the blocks. Oh no, Bambi, that's not like him at all. Flo Celli was a little bit hesitant out of the blocks. Bambi charged at the first gate and hit it too high going into that corkscrew. Oh, he's got some catching up to do now. Shane and QT FPV for Quad Force 1 into the waffle. Shane just overshooting that final turn. He's still comfortably ahead of QT FPV, who's having real problems as well. He overshot the split S, and his correction from that sent him into the first part of the slalom, so Shane now has nobody near him. There's 7 or 8 or more seconds between him and QT FPV. As I say it, QT FPV just loses more time and then some more, so Bambi has now got a real chance to catch him in second. We're on board with QT FPV here. It's definitely not been flowing so smoothly for him as it is just about doing for Shane in the front, but it feels like something could go wrong at any moment for any of these pilots. Shane, though, absolutely threading the waffle now. That's much better. That's his rhythm. QT FPV wrapping up that corkscrew. Not too bad, just not quite as tidy. We're talking fractions of a second here and there, but that's keeping him ahead of Bambi as Bambi is making some mistakes too, and Flo Celli has just been behind for all of this race. While this one has completely stretched apart, unlike the battles between SDT and Raiden Racing that we enjoyed just now. Now watch here as we're on board with QT FPV. He tends to overshoot in corkscrews. You see how he had to correct for the second and then the third. He goes a little bit too far past the next one. Shane doing nice work there, but hits the third and manages to bounce through it just as I was about to use him to highlight how tidily he can fly a corkscrew. QT FPV, that's better, but he's very close to the exits and bumps out of the fourth. That's it, if you aren't perfectly lined up, and he had another correction there in the waffle, then it can definitely affect your exit. He's got plenty of safe air though. Shane in front of him, nobody close behind him. QT FPV will stagger towards the finish line. Feels like a very long time to wait for him to get there, but he does, and it's a 1-2 for Quad Force 1. Yeah, over 10 seconds between first and second, almost that many again between second and third. Yes, that race, one of the most stretched out we've seen. It's a win for Shane. The wildcard team gonna have to lick their wounds and come back in the big heat. Yeah, Bambi straight into trouble. Here's QT FPV, who was okay here, but he goes too wide on this split S. Had to turn hard to get through it, which is why he hit the next part of the slalom. It's so important to be lined up for the following obstacle while you're still going through the one that you're next to. Shane did that well. Chogakva and West for the wildcard team have got the dominating duo of Hyper and Propsicle to contend with. Now, there are hardly any pilots in the DCL who can beat Propsicle at his best. Hyper, this split, seems to have found some extra pace and can keep with him. In the past for Quad Force 1, it's either been Propsicle winning races, or if he wasn't there, Hyper was their next best bet. But Hyper is definitely giving Propsicle as good as he can get. And Propsicle hasn't got it all his own way at the moment. West and Chogakva for the wildcard team are over 4 seconds behind. Close enough to maybe take advantage, but it will need one of these pilots to make a big mistake in order to let them do so. And Hyper is still ahead of Propsicle by about half a second now. Hyper into the corkscrew. There's Propsicle's view in second as he tries to go around on the inside of him, tries to cut everything tightly. That's the kind of move you want to do through that highest of the rings on the cliff. But you've got to go through it, and we've seen a couple of pilots just miss that turn by being a bit too eager. Now, Hyper has threaded that very nicely. Propsicle was a little bit too deep on one of them. But Hyper and Propsicle are flying just like each other. They seem to be very well tuned in here to this track. Propsicle following his teammate up to the top. And, oh, bit of correction. Yes, he's missed the second ring. It's very unusual to see Propsicle making any kind of mistake. We haven't had 5 rings hanging like that on a track before, so it's not an obstacle that some of our pilots will be very familiar with. But Propsicle is about as good as it gets. Just had to correct himself on the entrance to the first ring, and that meant he went too deep and too low for the second. Lost him a little bit of time. The wildcard team, though, are too far behind. Take advantage of it. We're into the third lap with our American duo here. Propsicle again on the chase, but now there's 2 or even 3 seconds between him and Hyper in the lead. Propsicle can't even see much of his teammate. There's Hyper weaving through. Propsicle coming down nicely. Hyper is heading towards the last parts of the track with Propsicle almost 2, yes, now 3 seconds behind him. Hyper is home very comfortably. Propsicle is in. West FPV is trying to push for the finish now and will come in a little bit closer. Chogakva not too far behind him. Of course, Quad Force 1 have been in the DCL since they joined back in 2018, whereas the wildcard team are a team made of pilots every season to give them a chance to show what they can do. So, some big learnings that they can take from their loss to the Americans. It all started pretty well, though. Now, Propsicle much later on in the track. Here's his adjustment. Just that tiny little twitch upset him into the first ring, and that messed up the second one. Here, though, look at that. That is just one big, beautiful set of turns. So the wildcard team have an almost impossible mission to win this matchup. If they came first, second, and third in the big heat, they would tie with Quad Force 1. If they get all 4 top positions, they would win it. So, clearly, that's a stretch too far. But what can they do? How much of a battle can they put in? Can we get some strong individual performances? West FPV has been flying pretty much the best, I would say, at the moment for the wildcard team. He is just hovering around QT-FPV on the tail end of the points. All the other ones are blue at the moment, and Shane is comfortably ahead of Propsicle and Hyper as well. And Hyper's gone down. On the climb up at the cliff, he hit the hurdle that you have to fly under. He smacked into that and went straight down into the sand. That would wipe out a real-life drone, but he is still flying, although back in third. QT-FPV still in fourth. Only the pilot challenging now is Chogakva from the wildcard team, as West has lost a few seconds. This is our second place Propsicle again. Not used to seeing him in the second place, but his teammates are really stepping up. And I've been saying for a number of years now, he can't do it all by himself. His teammates have really got to start helping score the big share of the points. Looks like they are getting that together. Propsicle over the top. There's a nice spiral all the way down, but Shane was tidier in and a little bit quicker afterwards, which is why he's now managed to extend himself to 2 seconds of a lead over Propsicle. This is quite unheard of. Shane now on the climb up, Prop then Hyper on to lap number 3. Chogakva's got past QT-FPV. He's got a lot of catching to do if he wants to take Hyper, and the way Hyper's been flying this track, as we've seen today, I'm not sure you can catch him. But Shane, there's a mistake, and Propsicle is not close enough to take advantage of it just yet. Shows you how well Shane has been flying earlier on to have such a big lead over Silas Aaron. Propsicle is always fighting for wins. Shane almost giving him a chance to catch him there, and the gap is still too big. Shane now 1 second ahead of Prop, and to the finish. There it is, another win for Shane. Propsicle getting another second place. Hyper's hung on for third. Chagakva's dropped quite a way behind him. It's QTFPV of the American team who are out of the points, along with the rest of the wild cards. And Shane winning that one. We haven't seen much of him. He hasn't raced for Quad Force 1 in the whole of 2024's Split 1 or 2. Now look at the start here. There were 6 drones into that gate within a 1/10 of a second out of the blocks. Absolutely brilliant start for most of them. Shane here threading the waffle beautifully with Propsicle trying to catch him. But a lap later goes in too deep, and there's an example of how it just stops you, and his lines throughout the first, second and third gates there not as tidy as he wants them to be. Still stayed on in front of Propsicle though, which is not easy to do. So Quad Force 1, the big winners there, and the wildcard team will be feeling pretty bruised. 23 points to 7, a big difference in scoreline there, and Quad Force 1 showing it's not just one man who can win races for them, so they're really on the up. In fact, Raiden probably thought with an 18-12 win over their near rivals STT that that might put them to the top of the leaderboard. No, it's Quad Force 1, and we haven't seen that for some time. Raiden second, Cyclone on a bye week, and SDT have dropped from second to fourth, so all eyes on them next time when they take on our current leaders Quad Force 1. And Cyclone will take on the China Dragons and want to get back into that first place. Thanks for watching the Drone Champions League. I'm Matt Andrews, and we will see you in the skies!